afternoon, everyone. Hello. Is this on? Hello. All right. Hello. My name is Adam Roberts, and I am the founder and executive producer of Arts in America, an arts media company. We have two primary purposes that we are working towards. We're working towards having a weekly national public radio show on the arts and a think tank. And I'm here to speak to you today sort of in that capacity, the capacity of a think tank. My talk today is called Eat Lunch and Other Lessons that Arts and Arts Organizations Can Steal from Google. Google. And this breaks down into three basic points that I've come up with here. One is get back in the lab, two is give 20%, and three is eat lunch. Now I'll break these down for you pretty quickly. First is get back in the lab. This gentleman doesn't know what's going on either. So I would venture to say that most people in this room use Google products, but particularly Gmail. How many people in this room use Gmail? All right, there we go. Very good, very good. So most of you are familiar with Gmail, and for those of us who grew up in an earlier era when there was no Gmail, we had things like AOL, Hotmail, Yahoo. I even still have a Juno account, if you can believe that. But I use Gmail. And what Gmail did was Gmail said, we're going to change email up a little bit. We're going to go back in the lab, as it were, and figure out what can make email exciting, new, and different. In fact, Gmail even has something called Gmail Labs. And what that is that Gmail wasn't satisfied with just coming up with a new way to do email and giving it to us, their benevolent public. They continue to make changes. They continue to fix it. They continue to make improvements. And they roll these things out in things called labs. So you can continue to use the original product, Gmail, but you can opt in to these various different platforms, changes, different things to make your email look and function better. Now, how does that work in the arts world? Well, there's a company in Chicago called Theater Wit. And what Theater Wit wanted to do was to change the conversation in Chicago of people who sit at home and go, what should I do this weekend? They wanted to change the conversation from that to, what's playing at Theater Wit this weekend? And they did that in a very interesting way. They took their subscription model, which most people who've been to the theater and have had a solicitation from theater know that what they want to do is they want to get you to buy a package of shows all at once and come back and see each of those shows. Theater Wit decided we're going to throw that out and try something different. We're going to go off of what Netflix does. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say you can pay $36 a month and come and have unlimited access to the more than 40 different shows that come through our 3 spaces every month, which means that if you go once, twice, 3 times, any time beyond that is basically free, based on what the normal ticket price is of this kind of thing. The reason they want to do it is they want to become the best storefront theater in Chicago. That's their idea. And so, in speaking with the artistic director, the way he summed it up was he actually used Google as an example. And what he said was that Google, when they're taking you to a website, doesn't care what sites you visit. They just care about hooking you up to those sites. And then afterwards, a lot of goodwill will then trickle back to Google so that when they have something that they do want you to pay attention to, you're much more likely to do so. Theater Wit is basically doing a really interesting experiment. They're one of 2 theater companies in the entire country who are trying this. We'll see how it goes. But they've gone back in the lab, as it were, to try and figure out how to do this. One other way that arts organizations and artists have gone back in the lab on their own involves the concession stand. Any of you have gone to a theater, sometimes a symphony orchestra. In the old days when I was growing up, it was anathema. It was forbidden to get a drink, a glass of wine or something, and then go into the theater, sit there, eat your peanuts, eat your popcorn. Well, popcorn, there's not many live theaters that have popcorn. And to do that, mainly because we were all afraid of something like this happening all over the floor. But at some point, theater companies, on their own volition, started to read their audiences a little better and went back in the internal lab and said, how can we actually go from this to a more confident this? By the way, if any of you are going to a theater where they have a snow cone, I would very much like to go there. Number 2, give 20%. I don't know if you can read this. I'll just read it quickly. Percent of time Google employees can spend working on ideas and projects that interest them, 20% out of their work week, or work day. Percent of Google products that originated from the 20% time, 50%. This is something that I think arts organizations can take to heart. One of the products that came out of the 20% was this. when Google was just a search engine and the Google bees were doing their thing at work, in that 20% time, someone said, why don't we figure out a better way to do email? And this came out of it. So what does that actually mean for someone who works for a theater or a museum or an opera company to take 20% of their time? It asks a lot. Let's break it down. Let's break it down. Okay, 20% of a 40-hour work week is 8 hours a week, okay? Now, take out 1 hour for lunch, which I'll get to in a second. 20% of 35 hours a week, 7 hours a week. Now that's ridiculous. That's way too much. Like, I've worked for arts organizations for years. I know that's not reasonable to do. So what if instead of 20 we said 3%? Because 3% essentially equals 1 hour a week. What if we all, as artists and people who work for arts groups or nonprofits or anything for that matter, said we're going to take 1 hour a week as our 20% time, or in this case 3% time. Now again, I can hear the chorus of what my colleagues at arts organizations would say. Adam, 1 hour a week is too much. We're already flat out, we're already understaffed. We're already understaffed, overworked, underpaid. We can't possibly do this. And what I would say to you is that we are not ever going to not be understaffed, overworked, underpaid, unless we carve out a little bit of time to try and fix that. And speaking for myself, and I'm sure everyone in this room can attest to this too, there isn't anyone here who doesn't spend the cumulative hour a week just messing around online. Facebook, YouTube, someone to Twitter, what is this, what is that? And so if one were to collectively harness this, there's a lot that we could all do. So, number 3, eat lunch. As you can see, everybody needs to eat lunch. By the way, no nutrition lessons here. You can see it's this cheeseburger and like mozzarella sticks, and Obama apparently wants in on some of that. I don't really know what that is. So what do I mean by eat lunch? What do I mean by this? What I mean by this is Google has this amazing program, and again, they've got the finances to do this. They have an amazing program where they provide food for their staff anytime they want. They have huge cafeterias. They have kiosks set up at strategic locations around the Google campus so that no Google employee is really very far from food. Now, this is a wonderful thing if you can do it. That's great. However, and so why do they do this, though, is the real question. Well, they do this because according to anyone who's ever studied this in the universe, if you have someone who is well-fed, they are happier and more productive. That's basically what it is. So, however, I know what it's like that you get set up in what you're doing and time goes by. You hit 12 o'clock, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. until you can do what one of my colleagues at one point has done, which is to come out of her office and exclaim to anyone within earshot, "Oh my God, I'm so hungry, I'm going to eat my face off." My point for all of this is quite simply that back to the 20% time, basically, is that we're never going to solve the problems we have unless we take the time and have the energy to solve them in the arts. So what I would say, the words of wisdom I would leave you with is to get up from your desk, get out from behind your painting or your sculpture or your piano, whatever it is you're doing, find some friends, go to lunch, start working on your 3% time. By the way, again, no nutrition lessons here. Popcorn, ice cream sundaes, I don't know what this is. You will be amazed if you do this at how many wonderful, amazing, creative ideas you can get to solve your problems and the energy that you will have to accomplish them. That's me, Arts in America. Check us out. Go to our website, pitch us a story about what you want us to cover in our show. Thank you.